Bismillah. Welcome back, Zoo Crew. So, first of all, if you hear like random sound effects in the background, I have the dryer going on and the dishwasher going on. So, I'm assuming they're going to start beeping at some point, you know? But I didn't want to just keep waiting until they were done to do this video because, again, like I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about the Ottawa housing crisis. And I feel like I have some unique insights to offer just because like I've literally been on the front lines of homelessness and like Ottawa housing issues since pretty much 2013, you could say, right? So my whole adult life or my like working life from 2010, actually even prior, so like from grade 11 until 2020, 2021, I had been working for my dad like in the middle of Vanier at his motel, right? So prior to 2013, it was run like a normal hotel slash motel. And then in 2013, just by fluke, I ended up getting this fax from the city asking if we would be interested in doing emergency housing. So they were initially looking to send it to Ottawa Plaza Inn, not Ottawa Inn, right? And then so we started housing some of these people, and the emergency housing program, like it houses refugees, people seeking asylum. If somebody's running away from an abusive family, their house burned down, they had termites, there's a bunch of different scenarios in which like the city will put somebody into a hotel, right? And then it got to a point where we realized that like it's not a very efficient system, right? So we came up with a solution for the government where instead of, because like if there's a family of more than like four people, the city has to put them in multiple rooms, right? So there's a few issues with this. First of all, like if you have a family of like six people or like eight people, whatever, now your family is split up between like 2 to 3 rooms. And then in some of those cases, like there's no adult in one of those rooms, right? So now the parents are kind of worried. And then like the city will pay like 130 to $150 a night to house these people, right? So first of all, like we were the cheapest option because we were like, okay, well we'll do it for like 99 bucks, you know? And then so our creative solution to like save the city money was housing some of these larger families in apartments nearby, right? So we bought up a bunch of these little like duplexes, triplexes, etc. And now like the family gets to stay together, and then outside of that, like now they have cooking facilities as well, right? So like if you're trying to raise kids, like you don't want to be feeding them Burger King for every single meal, right? So but like if you're living in a hotel room, how are you going to cook food, right? So not only did we end up saving the city like having to rent multiple rooms to house one family, the families were also more appreciative because now they have like a home instead of just living in like a hotel room, right? And then again, like they have a front yard, backyard, parking, cooking facilities. They're like just more space, you know? And like they could feel like they were at home. Felt like they were being treated with dignity and like respect, right? And then what ended up happening is like the city councilor for that ward, Matthew Fleury, he's no longer a city councilor, you know, but he started like going on a like smear campaign and was just like attacking us. And like this is the stupidity of the government. Like this is a government run program, and he's a city councilor who's unaware of the government run program, and then like creating issues and like fighting against the city, you know? And like it's so stupid because like we saved the city like millions of dollars over like years, right? And like not only do we save the city money, we offered them a better solution because like I've been saying in so many videos, the government is not in the business of anything other than maintaining and gaining power, right? So if they knew how to solve housing, or like yeah, we wouldn't be in this mess right now, right? And the thing is, it even goes beyond this. So in Ottawa, there's four main players, right? Minto, Claridge, and then I'm forgetting the other two. But essentially, like they'll pick a neighborhood, they'll go and develop that neighborhood, then they'll go to the next one, then they'll go to the next one. So they all move together, right? So they have like a whole monopoly over the Ottawa real estate scene. And if you're my age, maybe older, you'll know in like 2010 to like 2013, they put up a bunch of condo towers downtown, right? And a lot of people bought these condos thinking, okay, like it's going to be like Toronto. I'm going to pay 200 grand for this condo. And like in 5 years, it's going to be worth 500 grand. Obviously, that didn't happen because people in Ottawa don't want to live downtown. They don't want to live in a condo. They want to live in a suburb. They want to have a front yard, backyard. They have pets. They have kids. Like they live that life, you know? They don't live the same lifestyle as Toronto where it's like very upbeat, fast. Everyone's just running around, hustling, you know? So I know a bunch of people who bought these condos for like 200K thinking like the value's going to go up. And then 5 years later, the value didn't go up, you know? And these builders realized this. And like you can do your own homework. You can go study this. Like the stats are all available for free. But they slowly stopped building as many houses and then got to a point where they just weren't building houses, right? So they artificially created this bubble and demand, which then shot the property values up, right? So like when it comes to real estate as an asset class, like there's so much market manipulation going on. And really Canada has just become like a hedge fund for real estate for like international people, right? So like you see this in Toronto, you see this in Vancouver, where you have international money coming and parking it in, right? And then the people who own the assets are always going to vote for policies that are in their benefit, right? So essentially what's happened is the government is stealing the wealth of its future generations, right? So like if you're my age or younger, like you won't be able to get ahead just because of all the policies and all of like the games and manipulation that the government's been doing, right? And it's nothing crazy because like even in Ottawa, I'd been telling so many of my friends, like, you're going to see, like, we're going to grow in the same way of, like, you have neighborhoods like Milton in Toronto, right? So, like, the very far outskirts of Toronto started to get developed, and then the values went up, right? And then, sure enough, from, like, 2013, 2016, you noticed, like, Carleton Place, Rockland, Cumberland, all of these neighborhoods starting to get developed, right? And, like, the biggest issue in Canada in terms of housing, like, there's so much land, is just not being developed or it hasn't been developed, right? And it's not in the benefit of people to develop this land because they have a monopoly, first of all. And then outside of that, like with inflation, the cost to build goes up, right? And like doing a development, a large scale development is very, very risky. Like you make one mistake, you're going to be wiped out and like you're never going to like recover, regardless of how much money you have and how much experience you have. Literally one mistake is all it takes to wipe you out when it comes to development, right? And when I'm saying development, I mean like people who are going to go buy land, they're going to get it rezoned, they're going to get their plans in place, and then they're going to literally put up a tower, or like they're going to build a whole community of houses or like townhouses, right? So again, like this was all by design, right? And then even if we like backtrack a little bit, so in 2008, the global economy everywhere was in a recession. Everyone's housing markets collapsed. The bubbles popped. Canada, our bubble didn't pop. And like the stupidity of the government was, oh, see, our banks are so stable that we didn't pop, not realizing that they just created, like they kicked the can down the road, right? So everything that's going on now, like they're doing these things to keep the market from imploding. And anyone who's been in this industry for like as long as me will know what I'm saying is the truth because they've witnessed this happen, right? So the market should have tanked in 2008, then again in 2013, then again in 2016, 2019, 2020, and like now we're at a point where they really can't stop it from popping, right? So this is why they were like, okay, well now we're going to bring in all these immigrants, right? And it's going to drive demand up. And so the skilled immigrants that came in who could afford homes were able to buy homes, right? COVID happened, 0% interest, 1% interest. People who shouldn't have been buying homes went out and bought homes and they overpaid by a lot, right? Just because they could afford more homes. So when the interest rates are down, you can afford more of a home, right? But this is like the whole game. When it comes to real estate investing as an asset, the way to do it is you buy when interest rates are high because property values are low. You hold it and then you refinance or sell when interest rates are low. That's how you extract the most value out of a real estate deal. What everybody was doing is buying when prices are high and interest rates are low. So like it's just complete upside down. So anyone who's like not a doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, like somebody with a very like well-paying job, something in tech, you know, these guys are not afford their mortgages, and you're gonna have a whole wave of homes coming on the market for sale, right? And like they can't stop this from happening. And if they cut rates, like they're just gonna make the situation worse, and we're gonna end up in like even more hyperinflation, right? So our dollar is going to keep losing value and people are not going to be able to afford anything, right? And then when people can't afford anything, they stop going out, they stop spending money. When people aren't spending money, businesses are closing. When businesses are closing, commercial real estate values are dropping, right? So there's really no out for this situation other than just letting the whole market tank, letting the bubble pop, and the system resetting, right? And like I've literally been waiting for this market to reset since 2013. So like if you've seen The Big Short, like it's literally The Big Short. And everybody thought I was crazy when I first started making my predictions in 2020. And sure enough, everything has come true, right? And like in 2021, 2022, when they like made this announcement about the immigrants, I literally explained what is going to happen, right? Like they're going to bring in these people. It's going to prop up the real estate market, and then it's all one big fucking game, you know? So the major issues in terms of like housing or like the crisis here, and like even backtrack a little bit more. So like in 2013, 2016, even 2019, like the record of homeless people like was well over 20,000 people, right? And these are the people we knew who were homeless. I'm sure the number was a lot higher. So as we get closer and closer to like this bubble popping, there's going to be more homeless people. And like if you read The Fourth Turning, you read A History of Central Banking, you'll be aware that like we're very much due for like a civil war or a world war, which is why you're noticing all the chaos all over the world, right? And then again, democracy is at its end. Democracy only lasts 230 years. So we're at that point now where every 80 years history repeats itself, and then democracy ends at 230 years. So it's literally a perfect storm that's brewing, right? And like I'm not saying any of this as like fear mongering, because this is the thing, when there's chaos and like the bubble implodes, that's when there's going to be real opportunity. That's when it's going to be like possible for our generation and younger to actually make something or like buy assets, you know? Whereas with the way the system is and the way the market and economy has been going, like it's literally, unless your parents like can give you help or assistance, like you're not going to be able to buy any assets. You're not going to be able to create cash flow. You're going to be living paycheck to paycheck or like on credit card debt, just trying to survive and like barely surviving, right? And again, this is all by design, right? They don't want people to be aware of what's going on. And really like the age we live in now, like there's no excuse for being ignorant about any of this. Go do your own research, friggin' Google some shit, go look at the stats, and like if you can't make sense of the information, reach out to me, reach out to people who are discussing this and ask them to explain it to you, you know? And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm like very much confident in what I'm saying just because like I literally lived through this and I've literally been watching this unfold, right? So like government literally mismanages money, is paying multiple hotels like $150 a night per room. So if you have a family of like 6 people, they're now paying for 2 to 3 rooms, right? Per day. So this adds up. Whereas like, and then people are like, oh, well, why don't they just build housing? And it's like, well, the government is not in the business of building housing, right? This is why you have all of these like Crown Corps or like nonprofit organizations getting paid from the government to go and build housing, right? And then they build projects and like super terrible buildings, super bad infrastructure, and like people don't want to live there, and like it just creates more of like a ghetto vibe, you know? So this is why I've been such a strong proponent of libertarianism, where like you would have entrepreneurs going and like people who understand real estate building nice housing for the community, building real communities, not just like housing as like an asset, right? Or like turning it into a commodity, because like that's like that's a basic need. Everybody deserves to have housing, right? Like people should not be owning multiple houses and like profiting off of that, not having to work because now somebody else couldn't buy the house and they're literally paying your mortgage off and putting money in your pocket. Like that should not be allowed, right? So like real estate's like turned into an asset class instead of what it was an economy, like a need, like a basic need, right? So like when I'm saying this though, like sure, commercial real estate should be an asset. I don't disagree with that at all, right? I'm saying residential real estate should not be considered an asset. Like people shouldn't be allowed to buy multiple houses and then like speculate in the market, right? So many people were buying houses and like renovating them and then flipping them and so like selling it for a profit. And like it was all speculation. Their math didn't work. And as soon as the market tanked, all these people went bankrupt, right? And all this did was price people out of the market. Same thing with like all of these big hedge funds, investment groups, investor collectives, syndications, etc., right? Like they're just buying up doors, jacking up the rents, not really improving the living condition of anybody living there, and it's all just for profit, right? So this is why, like, initially I had this idea for Pebble Developments, and what we were gonna do was we were gonna do a crowd fund first of all. So every single person, like, we would raise $1,000 per person from people in the city who want to like solve housing, and then we would approach the government and be like, "Yo, you guys donate land to like all of these nonprofits, just donate land to us." And it's not even just like you're donating it to me, it's all of these citizens of the city who want to solve this problem, right? And then we would get CMHC financing, and then we would put up this tower. And the way it would work, so like people were actually like solving housing, is geared to income rent, right? So if you're making $20,000 a year, your rent would only be 20%. And then the rest would be subsidized through the building. And how we would do this is the ground floor, like 2, 3 ground floor levels, would be commercial retail, community center, art center, music center, coding room, etc., sponsored by businesses and hosting businesses. And then above that, you would have like multiple floors of apartments, and then above that you would have a few floors of like short-term rentals, like a hotel, right? So between the commercial retail on the ground floor and then the hotels on the top floor, this would subsidize everybody living there and generate enough profit that the people who invested are not only solving the housing crisis and building a nice community for people to live in, they're also getting a return on their investment, right? And then like the final kicker was on the roof, we were thinking to have like some kind of greenhouse slash hydroponics or like aquaponics, right? So there's fresh fish and like fresh vegetables and fruit, and then people inside the building would work there, and it's like a sufficient ecosystem essentially, right? It was very, very hard to try and pull this off, and like without the right team, it just became impossible. So like in terms of like the real estate side, the development side, and like the math of the real estate, I had that under lock. It's just the whole like tech side, the crowdfunding side, that's where I needed some assistance, and I wasn't able to find the right team members to do this. However, maybe things will change now. So if somebody watching this video, like this whole idea resonates with you and you want to help me pull this off, like let's chat, let's collaborate, and let's pull it off, because the housing crisis is not going to get better until somebody takes the initiative to solve it. And like, you cannot rely on the government, and you can't blame the immigrants. Like, it's up to entrepreneurs to solve the problem in a creative way, right? And this is why I mentioned like how we were doing emergency housing. Like, the government solution was, okay, let's pay hotels to house all of these families in multiple rooms. Our creative solution was, okay, we're going to put one family in an apartment instead of in 3 rooms, and we're going to charge less, right? So not only were we full all the time, we're housing people, we're providing them a better product and a better service, and we're solving a problem for the government, right? So initially, like, I didn't know where I was going with this video. I thought I was going to talk more so about like the housing crisis and like the Ottawa housing crisis, but we kind of touched on that. But this was the main theme, I guess, or the main point that was worth discussing. So these are my thoughts and opinions on the Ottawa housing crisis and Ottawa homelessness and the current state of the economy. If you found this to be valuable information, drop me a like, drop me a comment, subscribe. Zoo Crew, that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow.